there's many things we can do. As we know right now, we're coming up to the 4th of July. And this is our independence as our country of America. This is where we fought to be free. We fought to have our freedom. And in our freedom was our freedom of religion. And some people don't know, I think, how strong that is. Because that gives us the freedom to be here today. To be able to sit amongst our neighbors and our family and friends and talk about Jesus and God. To be able to do that freely without fear. And God knows, and we know, the countries that are facing turmoil and anguish and war and poverty, and where they're not allowed to speak freely about Him, where they have to go and hide to be able to open the Bible and hear His Word, because of in fear that if somebody sees them, that they could be killed. But God has given us that gift to not have to worry about that here. Yeah, we do still have our quirks, our types where we have to worry about certain things. But we have a lot more freedom to talk about God than a lot of other countries do in our day and age today. But we also have the opportunity to be able to do something, and that's pass on His Word. Pass on His Word to everyone who will hear it. You know, we heard in the Scripture where Jesus told His disciples that it's now time for them to go out and tell everyone of Him. To tell them the good news. To perform miracles in His name. To complete His tasks. To show everyone that He truly does exist. We know that He told them to go out into all the world and preach the good news. And we're His disciples. That's part of our job, is to go out there and let anybody know about Him. Not only that, but back in Mark, you know, He gives us the power to drive out the demons, to talk to people, to let them know that He's not afraid. You know, it says that in my name they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands. And when they drink deadly poison, it will not hurt them at all. They will place their hands on sick people, and they will get well. He has given us that. He gave us that power to go out there and to tell people not to be afraid. Not to be afraid if you're sick or if you're hurting. Because Jesus is there. And His faith is stronger than that we could ever imagine. And His Spirit is with us. We know that the Lord was then taken up to heaven, where He sat with God. And that He passed it on to us. He now gave us the ability to go out into His name and use Him to show everybody who He truly is. And you know, being a disciple for Jesus is a strong, difficult task. that's where we have to go out and not be afraid to tell everybody of Him. To not be scared to walk up to that stranger on the street. Or to stop on the side of the road when that lady has a flat tire. Or the gentleman. And help them. You know, there's lots of obstacles that we have to deal with in our everyday lives. Our outside forces of today's world that can ignore and reject what we are doing. But even though that does face us, it's still our job to pass His word on to everyone who will hear. You know, there's a lot of people out there that think a good Christian should be one who walks around with his shoulders all upright and has his tremendous inner strength and power to be able to look at you and quote all the scriptures to you and to let everyone know his knowledge of the Lord and the Bible. But is that really what we should be doing? Or should it be us out there telling others of the Lord and Bible? And, you know, I don't know every scripture in the verse. I can't recite every one off the top of my head, and I don't expect anybody else to. But if I have somebody come up to me and ask about Jesus, I want to be able to tell them something about it. I try to have a Bible in my car or something at all times. I've got cards in my wallet. So that if somebody asks, I can do something. I can tell them something. And try to help them know Jesus. But, you know, we really need to know that a real believer is one who has faith in the Lord and does nothing without Christ. Nothing at all without Jesus. The strongest Christian is not the one who has achieved the most, but rather the one who has received or asked for the most from God. Because getting God's grace, His love, and mercy that flows through Him makes it flow through them, and them abundantly, because He walks in total dependence of Him, the Lord. And you know, we have all kinds of opportunities that we can pass on. We can pass it on, Jesus, to others. He allows us to have those opportunities. I'm going to read an article. It says, I remember flying into Midway Airport in Chicago during a blizzard. An engineer from India was sitting next to me. As we talked, I found out he was planning to take a bus all the way to O'Hare Airport and then have his pregnant wife drive from a distant suburb with his 2 young children to pick him up. Well, hearing that, he said, look, I have a car at Midway, he told him. How about I just give you a lift home? The man was grateful. And during our drive, he asked why he was willing to go all the way out of his way just for him. And he tried to explain. He said, has anybody ever done something so kind for you that it makes you want to pass a kindness along to someone else? And he kind of nodded. He said, okay, yeah. He said, well, Jesus Christ has done something incredibly kind for me. As they talked, they began to understand that God's outpouring of grace had motivated him to help him. When they arrived at his house, the man thanked him and said, I'm going to have to do some thinking about all of what you told me tonight. And there's no doubt in his mind that his words about Jesus registered with him, because he experienced the love of Jesus through his practical deed of just giving the man a ride home. He passed on Christ's love. He passed it on. Something as simple as just giving a man a ride home could open a whole new life for that man. That man had the ability to go home and think about Jesus and have the opportunity to learn more about him. And that's what we're here to do. There are so many things that we can do to pass on Jesus' word to others. You know, some can be as big as what we do here, having our dinner to raise money to put those shoes and coats on these children we have that are in need. That makes such a huge impact here in our community. But you know, little things can also have a very big impact. You know, I have just sit down and just talked to complete strangers with my word. Just people that, I don't know what's going on through their lives. But I have sit down and I have just talked with them. Sit there while I was doing my job and listen to them. And you could tell that when I left, that made a difference. Just while I was working, having to fill out the paperwork, just listening. People sometimes just need someone to listen to them, even a complete stranger. And just something as little as that can bring out a joy as big as the world to others. One way that I like to pass it on to others, and I have, and I'll tell you, I've had it passed on to me. And that's how I found this way. A fellow colleague I used to work with one day. What'd you do with them, Debbie? You had them up here. The cards.
They're over there. Avery was going to knock them over. They're on that first pew.
On the first pew.
Sorry.
Thank you. I had somebody hand me a card one day from work. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they're called the Pass It On card. These little cards just have little scriptures or something on them. You can see this one here. It says, Jesus heals. 1 Peter 2:24. Or this one, open your heart to all that God has planned for you. The Lord will fulfill His purpose for me. Psalm 138:8. There's tons of these cards out here. They're very inexpensive. About a dime, 15 cents a piece. And you know, something as little as that can really make a difference. My wife's given me cards like that. And something that small has affected me. It's affected me to where I've come up here today to become a lay speaker and talk to you. I actually even have a book where I've got cards or acquired them and keep them so I can remember God's love, to pass it on. Pass it on to others. Can I ask one of the ushers to come forward for me real quick? I want all of you to have one of these cards today, so you'll know that God's love. If you want to take more, take more. If you want to pass one on to others. But like I said, just something as small as that card that you can hand to somebody else can make that world a difference, to let them know about Jesus today.